Okay guys, today we're going to cover Standard 6.51. We're going to compare and contrast the status of women and slaves between Athens and Sparta. And you are going to be doing this in Office 365. You will use Word so that you can put a table in and color code it the way you want to. And then you will save it in your Word Online Grease folder 6.1 or 6.51. Alright, your table, you're going to see when you get, well, you're in Canvas, hello, because you're watching this video in Canvas. But you will see the table there. Also, when you do the Word document, the table will look like this. So you will have your standard right here. You will have pizzazzled it, and then you will put a table in that looks like this. This part will be for women in Athens and Sparta. This part's going to be for slaves in Athens and Sparta. Okay, so you're going to be using this video to help you fill out the table. I do want you to have 5 facts for each category that you have. So there'll be 5 facts for women in Athens, 5 facts for women in both Athens and Sparta, 5 for women in Sparta, 5 for slaves in Sparta, 5 for slaves in both Athens and Sparta, and 5 facts for slaves in Athens. So you will have a total of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 facts. Alrighty? Okay, so I'm going to read this to you, and you can use this to help you find the facts. There are some typos in here. I did not type this one, but I will be fixing them. As a matter of fact, I think I'll do that right now before we get started. Okay, here we go. Athenian women and slaves. Women and slaves were not considered citizens in Athens, therefore they had very little rights. Athenian women could not own property, vote or attend the assembly, or even choose their own husbands. Some women's only job in Athens was managing the household. They would spend their days working around the house and raising their children. Women would educate their sons until they were around 6 or 7 years old and were ready for school. They would educate their daughters until they were 15 and ready to be married. There were many slaves throughout Athens. Slaves were either born into slavery or were captured during times of war. Some slaves ran Athenian households and tutored children. Others were forced to work on farms or in factories, and others worked as clerks in the city. The most unlucky slaves worked in the silver mines for approximately 10 hours a day. These mines were about 300 feet below the ground. Okay, you should be able to get some facts out of the Athenian women and slaves slide that I just read to you. And I'm going to switch to the next slide, which is Spartan women enslaved. Okay, so now we're going to read Spartan women and slaves, and hopefully you're going to see some differences and maybe some similarities. Alright, here we go. Spartan women lived similar, simple lives to men in Sparta. They wore very simple clothing and no makeup. Women were expected to be strong and healthy, and when necessary, be ready to fight. The women were expected to look after their husband's property in times of war, and to guard it from invaders and slavery revolts. The Spartan slaves were helots. Helots were people whose lands had been conquered by Sparta. There were more helots than citizens in Sparta. Helots, surprisingly, had some rights. They could marry whomever and whenever they wanted. They could sell any extra crops they had after giving their master his share, and if they had saved enough money, they could buy their own freedom. Okay, remember you are looking for 5 facts for each category in this table. Once you get that done, you will be submitting that in Canvas for a grade. And, you know, there's probably going to be a quiz or something over it too. So you might want to know the difference between Spartan women and slaves and Athenian women and slaves. Just saying. Okay. See you, bye.